Overtime with Joe Parker provides a comprehensive look into high school sports in North Atlanta. Tune in each week for prep sports headlines and in-depth discussions with local players and coaches.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Overtime with Joe Parker. I am joined today by our special guest who has the distinction of being our first professional football player here on the show, and really excited to have him as well because he's very active here in the local sports community, and that is Mike Haynes. Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very glad to have you. And I know a lot of our listeners, know you from your time with the Falcons and with the Saints. But, first want to touch on, kind of if you could give us a rundown of, I mentioned you're active in the sports community. Can you talk a little bit about that, what you have going on right now?
Absolutely. I run the local touchdown and tip-off club, touchdown being football, tip-off being basketball. And we have 29 schools that participate. It's pretty much all the schools in North Fulton and Forsyth, and that's public and private. And we also have 2 homeschool teams that participate. And what we do for the Touchdown Club is basically like an awards ceremony. We recognize players of the week. So we do 3 yearly dinners for them. And the first one is after the first 6 weeks of the season. Second one after the second 6 weeks of the season, and we do a year-end banquet. Now those dinners consist of we call them the player of the week, even though it's done bi-monthly, but it's because every week a coach would nominate one offense, one defensive player to us for that game that they played, and then all those kids would come to that banquet. And we just recognize those kids for doing what they're supposed to just having great seasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have been to one. They are quite the event, and as you said, with 29 schools, there are a lot of players there.
It is, and our touchdown club is player focused, so we try to recognize as many players as we can. And like I say, because we have 29 schools, and I should say there's about 25, 26 that participate actively every year, and each one of those schools bring 2 players for every game that they play. So like I said, we cut it off at the 6th week. After the 6th game, which means that there's 12 players each school brings. So out of the 26 schools, every school brings 12 players. And so we average about 575 people at an event. And besides the 225, 230 players that show up, the rest is moms and dads and aunts and uncles who wants to come see their player get recognized.
Mm-hmm. Obviously an honor for them. What's the reaction that you get from those players and those parents?
Well, it's a really good event because, like I said, we recognize players. We players who play well on the field. We recognize those kids for doing well, and so they get a T-shirt that say they were Player of the Week. They also get a certificate that's saying they were Player of the Week, and these players got to be invited to this. So it's not just any players that can come. They are nominated because they did something that got their coach's attention, that got them nominated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. Well, do want to obviously touch on your playing career, and I think a lot of us have this idea that when you talk about a professional football player, they grew up playing Pop Warner, from as soon as they could essentially hold the football, all the way through middle school and then into high school. Then they get recruited in high school. It's not necessarily the case for you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, my story is a little different. I didn't start playing football till I was 18. And the reason why I started playing football because I wanted to go to college. We couldn't afford to go to college, so I kind of walked on to a junior college team. And the way that I got there was my best friend got recruited there, so I kind of followed him and ran a 40 for them and didn't realize how fast I was until I ran that 40. And the rest is history. I just kept getting better and better at the sport, and got drafted by the Falcons 7th round. When they had 12 rounds, and I spent 10 years in the league. So I played for 2 different teams. My hometown is New Orleans. Mm-hmm. So when I became a free agent, I went to my hometown team and realized that I liked playing against them more than playing for them. So I ended up coming back and played my last year with the Falcons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with that, obviously we said kind of the non-traditional. I know, though, you were very active in track during high school. Is that
Well,
correct?
no, I didn't participate in any sports in high
okay.
school. So I ran track my junior year in college.
Okay.
So I ran my junior and senior year. I was pretty fast, so I qualified for the Olympic trials. I went to that the same year I got drafted. So I missed my first week of training camp because of the Olympic trials, which, for a seventh round rookie, not good to be missing training camp. So I got hazed a lot when I did get to training camp. But it was an experience that you don't often qualify for Olympic trials and get an opportunity to try to make Olympic team. I didn't think I was going to make the team, but I wanted that experience. I went to the trials and ran the 100. I got qualified in the 100 meters. I got to run against all the top United States athletes that was there. So that was a great experience for me. And then coming to training camp, I came into my first training camp in '88, and the rest is history.
With that, what was it like for you? Kind of, you obviously had this the speed. What was it like for you? Learning all the ins and outs of the game.
Well, that was the toughest part for me because I was blessed with speed. Didn't have to do much for that. I was blessed with it. So the rest of it was just having to learn the ins and outs of football. Like I say, I got drafted in '88, but 4 years earlier I wasn't playing football. So just picking up the little things that guys had been doing their whole careers, all the way, like you say, from 6 years old up, I had to learn those things on the fast track. So I worked really hard at it, and like I said, I used the tools that I had to help me advance. I knew I had speed, and when you're a receiver going up against a DB who he knows that you're faster than he is, he makes adjustments for that. So I used that tool to help me get to advance in my career.
When you were at it was Northern Arizona, correct?
Yes.
When you were there, as you continued to play, did you have that thought that, hey, maybe I could make it to the NFL?
No, I didn't. I basically, like I said, I started football to end up getting into college, and it helped me because it earned my scholarships. So I was a scholarship athlete all 4 years in college, and that helped a lot. But for me, it was a learning curve. So I was behind the ball always with all these guys who had been playing for a long time. So it took me a while to get to where I wanted to be. And then in my senior years, when scouts started coming around and looking at me, and matter of fact, they used to come to my track meets. So all 32 teams came to visit me when I was a senior in college. So I kind of had the inkling that I wasn't going to get drafted. And they all came and worked me out, and I visited with all these guys. And so it was about my senior year when I started thinking I had a chance at actually playing professional football.
And I guess when that call came from the Falcons, what was the emotion like for you at that time?
Well, I was actually running the track meet the weekend of the draft. The draft was a Sunday and a Monday back when I got drafted, and we were at Mount Sac Relays. And so that Sunday I was actually running track and didn't hear anything about being drafted. So that Sunday night we got back to the dorm. I hadn't got drafted. And then first thing Monday morning, the phone call came. So I answered the phone, and it was actually the Dallas Cowboys. So they called me and told me they were going to take me with their next pick. Well, what I did know is that they picked 4 or 5 picks behind the Falcons. So the next phone call I got was the congratulations, this is the Atlanta Falcons. We called to tell you that we just chose you with our 7th pick.
So definitely mixed of emotions to knowing you are and then finding out immediately that you already have been.
Yeah, it is, because after I got the call from Dallas, I had called my mom and called all my friends and told them, "Hey, I'm going to be a Dallas Cowboy." And when the actual phone call came down, it was actually the Falcons who picked me.
Yeah, very good. And coming to Atlanta, had you ever been in this area before? Were you familiar with it, or?
Well, I had been through Atlanta a few times. Like I said, I'm from New Orleans, so it's not very far from Atlanta, but I hadn't spent any time here. And the week after the draft, we have to come to meet the team and everything. And so flew into the Atlanta airport, and we got in a limo, and then he drove us out to the facility, which was in Swanee. And from the airport to Swanee it's quite a distance, and they just kept driving, and all the buildings went away, and all the scenery went away, and all of a sudden we out, and I was like, where are they taking us? So my first visit with the team was out to Swanee, which was where the training camp was, and it was a wonderful experience.
Yeah, and you talked about getting hazed a little bit with missing some of the training camp, but did you kind of get with the team quickly, starting to develop those relationships both with teammates and coaches? I did.
When I came in, we had there were 3 veteran receivers left on the roster, and there were 3 in my draft class, and then they brought in a whole bunch of other guys. So I had a feeling that I had a chance to make the team because there was only 3 veteran guys, and they usually keep 6 receivers. Now, being a 7th round draft pick, it's not for sure, but it's an opportunity. And I knew that the Falcons drafted me to be the kickoff and punt return guy because of my speed. I kind of led the nation in kickoff returns when I was in college, and I knew that was one of the reasons why they drafted me. So my rookie year is, I was the kickoff and punt return guy, and I played on 3rd down, so I went in on 3rd down. Now, the trick to that is, my second year in the league, they drafted a guy by the name of Deion Sanders, which they didn't need me to be punt return, kickoff return guy. So I had to find a way of earning a job at just playing receiver.
Yeah, and you touched on a point. Your time with the Falcons, you definitely had a lot of talent with you along there. Guys like Deion Sanders, Andre Rison. Who were some of the guys that kind of stood out for you with your time there, especially maybe in the early portion of your career?
Well, our quarterback Chris Miller out of Oregon. He was the number 1 draft pick the year before. I think it was '87, and he was a stud back in that time. And like Deion Sanders came. Deion came the year after. Andre came the year after. And my draft class, the number one overall pick that year was Andre Bruce. I don't know if you remember Andre Bruce out of Auburn. So Falcons had the number 1 pick, and they drafted Andre Bruce. So all the hype and everything that came along with being the number 1 overall pick came with him. So that was really interesting. And I think 11 out of the 12 draft choices that we picked that year made the team. So that was interesting that we had that many guys make the team from the draft.
And obviously, I imagine there's some bit of maybe, is it that happiness or maybe a little bit of, I don't know, ill feelings when you go over to New Orleans from leaving Atlanta, going back to your hometown? Were you excited about it? Were you, was it mixed emotion?
It was mixed emotions because, like I said, New Orleans was my hometown. And, as a kid, you always dream of playing for your hometown team. But I had my better games playing against New Orleans. I mean, it seemed like I had 2 touchdown games against them almost every time we played them. And then when I became a free agent and having the opportunity to go down and play for them, I was made a transitional player. I mean, there's franchising and there's transitional. And I was marked a transitional player. So it meant that I had an opportunity to go out and shop my talents around, and then the Falcons still have the chance to match it. So there were 4 teams on that list. There was Seattle, New Orleans, New York, and the Giants, both New York teams. And so I visit with all those teams, and, I was pretty comfortable at being at home. So I decided to sign a contract with the Saints, and had the Falcons matched it, I would have never left.
Now, what was that like now playing? I know you said you really like playing against them, but what was it like playing for the Saints, though, in your hometown?
Well, it was a lot of fun. I'm going to say that was a lot of fun because I got an opportunity to play in front of everybody I knew. I mean, all the folks I went to high school with who never saw me play in high school because they didn't play in high school. So I had that opportunity. And then also, I still had a lot of friends on the Falcon team. So we played them twice a year, and it was always good to come back and play against those guys.
Then you come back, like you said, final year in the league with the Falcons. What kind of went into that transition back over to Atlanta?
Well, when I became a free agent again, the Saints had just hired Mike Ditka as a head coach, and he was juggling players and moving folks around. And I got the opportunity to meet with Dan Reeves, who had just got the head coaching job here at the Falcons, and they really wanted me back. So I continued to live here. Even though I played there, I continued to live here. So when I got the opportunity to come back, I jumped at it and came back.
And obviously, a lot of moments within your playing career. I know maybe for a lot of fans, Atlanta Falcons fans, they'll think back maybe to your catch against the 49ers or the
Hail Mary.
Yeah, or the touchdown winner over the Saints. What are kind of some of those moments that you look back on that are just kind of unforgettable?
Well, both of those. I mean, the Hail Mary against the 49ers, I'm thinking it was 91, and we had 9 seconds left on the clock, and it was an opportunity for us to beat the 49ers twice in the same season for the first time. And, Hail Marys are just a jump ball, and everybody's going after it. So I end up with the ball, and then we celebrated a little bit, and we got through that. And then the other thing was my first time in the playoffs was also the 91 season when we played against the Saints that you referred to. And I ended up scoring the winning touchdown. And I had scored a touchdown earlier in that game and got hit and broke 2 ribs. And so sitting out most of the third quarter and then coming back in and scoring the winning touchdown, which was huge because it was in front of my hometown crowd, and it advanced us into the playoffs. The other things that in my career that I'm most proud of is I scored the first touchdown in the Georgia Dome. So we built the Dome in 92. I think opening season was 92. And first play from scrimmage, the first game in the Dome, we just went for it and ended up scoring the touchdown. And so those things were really a highlight. The only other thing that I would say was I still hold the one record that the receivers hadn't broken, which is longest touchdown reception from scrimmage. Which is 98 yards.
Okay, yeah, that was my next question.
And I think Julio's going to end up breaking that. He done broke every other record that everybody has. So, I mean, it's just a matter of time.
Well, we'll keep an eye on whenever the Falcons have it on the 1 yard line.
Yes, I know. Coming out.
Well, with that is, I know the game has obviously changed. It's changing from year to year. What are kind of some of the biggest differences you see from your time at the college and professional level to where it's come now? Well,
you're right. It's evolving, and it's mostly evolving because of player safety. Back when we played, I mean, everything was just loose and out there running around. They really care about trying to keep these guys mentally and physically healthy past their playing years. There's so many guys now who are in the era when I played and before me that deal with injuries and mental things that could have been prevented with a safer game. And I think that's the biggest part of what they're trying to do, is trying to protect those guys from injuries past their playing career. And so there's rules that's been implemented that protect those guys, like hitting the quarterback, putting your hands on the receivers after 5 yards, and certain things that just help the players from getting hurt.
Some of those rules, hitting the quarterback, it kind of catches some flack from some fans. I think you have far more insight than any fan's ever going to have. You view those rules though as positives for player safety. Yeah,
I think they are positive. I mean, I do think that because I played in the era where it was a lot rougher game, that I think that some of the rules are overdone. But as a player, you want to be able to function after football. So I think the rules are important, that those guys are healthier coming out of this thing than they are. I mean, I know football is a rough game, and even my son who plays football, I tell parents now, I say, like, I let my son play because he wants to play. I know football's a rough game, and it's not one of those issues of if you get hurt, it's win, because it's that rough of a game. When you got people running into each other and knocking each other down, you're going to get hurt. And that's just the nature of the business. The severity of injuries are, to me, not worth not playing, because if I was young enough, I'd do it again. So,
with that, you obviously have this the North Georgia Touchdown Club, so you're seeing these high school players day in and day out. Obviously, a ton of talent here in this area.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Would you have any advice for somebody who maybe wants to, as you said, or as you did, go play football to receive a college degree, or maybe some who have the desire to aim for the NFL? Do you have any advice that you would give them that is, do this before anything else?
Well, absolutely. I would say if it's your dream to play in the NFL, don't lose that dream. It's something that you have to work really hard at, but there's steps to take before. You can't just go from sixth grade to playing in the NFL. There's always steps you got to take. I would always say work hard as you can at the game. Take the game for what it's worth. It is a game. You can make a career out of it, but no matter what level you play at, it is a game. Have fun. It's meant to be played to have fun. So if your goal is to even go to college, and I'll say this, if you're an average football player on any team, you can play in college, because there's that many college programs out there. And some of those schools will give you money to play. So if you have the talent to play and you want to play in college, there's always a school that will take you to play. I'm a kid who had no experience at playing football up until I got to college, and they gave me a scholarship to play. So any average kid can go and play in college. Now, it won't be the LSUs or the Georgias or the Alabamas, but you can get your school paid for if you want to, sacrifice going to a smaller school and getting your education paid for.
With that, do you feel that there is maybe more pressure on, high school football players now that we have, there's Twitter, anybody can view your highlight film on Huddle. Do you feel that there's more pressure than maybe when you were, at Northern Arizona?
I wouldn't say there's more pressure. I say there's less, because nowadays, because of instant media, that your stats and your video, your highlights and all that, it's out there automatically all the time. So more college coaches get an opportunity to view you. When I was coming through schools, the smaller schools, the Division III and NAIA schools who didn't have the recruiting budget to recruit players, now they can go to the social media and they can recruit players. They can see that player play instead of sending somebody, especially down here, to say if a small school in South Dakota decide they want to recruit a player and don't have the budget to send somebody here. Social media, the kids can put their highlights on Huddle, and those coaches can recruit those kids without having to come here. So I would say it's a bonus, because now kids get seen more because of social media.
Yeah, and with that, obviously we talked about your playing career and how big sports has been in your life, but I do want to touch on the Miracle League and how you're involved with that, and again, this aspect of the sports community here in this area. Can you talk a little bit about the Miracle League?
Absolutely. Our program is called the North Metro Miracle League, and there's Miracle League fields all around Georgia. I think Miracle League headquarters is here, but we are the North Georgia. The North Metro Miracle League, and it's an organization that provides softball for disabled kids, and I say disabled, and that can be anything, mentally, physically, and we don't turn anybody away. So it just gives them an opportunity to participate. Most times in a home that has disabled kids and able-bodied kids, that those disabled kids sit on the sideline and they watch their able-bodied brothers and sisters participate. Well, we put on a program that gives them an opportunity so that they can participate and be out on the field and enjoy the same things that able-bodied kids get to enjoy. So Miracle League is it's been a wonderful part of my life. My wife and kids all come out, and I coach the 4 to 8 year olds, and we're the first game on Saturday mornings up at the North Park. So if you get an opportunity to come out, please come out and watch the kids, and as they enjoy their time, just participating. And we try to be all inclusive. So it's more of a family thing for us. So we include everybody. So the families come out and they cheer on their brothers and sisters, and it's just a fun opportunity for those kids, like I say, to get an opportunity to be out on the field.
It certainly sounds like a fun time. I think it probably goes without saying, but what is kind of the importance of providing an outlet where anybody can play?
Absolutely. And, like I said, sometimes these parents don't get a break from taking care of their kids. And for that hour or so that their kids out on the field, they get the chance to have like-minded conversations with other parents who have disabled kids. So while those kids are out on the field doing their thing, the parents can get a chance to relax a little bit and talk to other parents. And here's one of the really coolest things about what we do. We have what we call a buddy system. So every kid that participates, and I shouldn't say kids because Miracle League, our oldest participant's 92 years old. So we go from 4 years old to 92 years old. So I shouldn't say just kids because we do have adults and teenagers who also play. But when they're out on the field, we use a buddy system. So every person is paired with a able-bodied person that helps them, escorts them around the base if they need be, or help them swing the bat if they need be. And the coolest thing is that the local high schools, they'll send the whole baseball team, they'll send the whole softball team, they'll send the whole football team to be buddies with our kids, which is the really coolest thing.
Yeah, fantastic. And definitely, obviously, important from my perspective, sounds like, actually bringing the community together as well when you're talking about bringing in those high school teams.
It is, and we are right in the middle of North Park, where all the able-bodied kids' fields are where they participate. So we are right in the middle of all that, and it gives an opportunity, like I said, and because I run the Touchdown Club, I have relationships with all the head coaches. So a lot of times we get the whole football team to come out and participate, which is, for me, that's really cool because it kind of brings two worlds together.
Yeah, and with that, obviously, we're getting here towards maybe spring football. Obviously, I think since the North Georgia Touchdown Club has been around, we've had state champions. We've had tons of guys go on to the collegiate level, some even to the pros. How would you kind of describe this area as far as athletics go?
Well, it's a hotbed for football for sure. For basketball also. I know Georgia, they produce a lot of athletes. And we've been really lucky with our Touchdown Club because last year we had 2 teams win state. The year before that we had 1 team win state. And the year before that we had 2 teams play for state. So we've been really lucky in our Touchdown Club having teams actually win and play for state. Milton won the 7A title, and then Blessed Trinity also won the 4A title, which, having 2 schools in our Touchdown Club win the state championship was awesome. A few years ago, we had Roswell play in the state back-to-back. We also had Blessed Trinity play, and they lost a game. So, we've been really blessed in our area. The coolest thing after the 2018 season, it was really cool for us because we had 4 kids drafted into the NFL that had been through the Touchdown Club, leading off with Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs was our 2012 overall player of the year that year, and now he's playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's really cool that, we've had kids go through the program and now playing professional football.
Yeah, and as a Tennessee fan, I can tell I'm definitely familiar with Josh Dobbs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very good. Well, Mike, I want to thank you immensely for coming on the show today. And if you want to give our listeners where they can look up some more about the North Georgia Touchdown Club or the Miracle League.
Absolutely. Our company is called Straight Up Sports. So you can go to straightupsports.com to find any information about the Touchdown Club. Also, the North Georgia Touchdown Club has a website. ngtdclub.com. And then if you want to come out, and I always encourage people, please come out and volunteer for Miracle League. We are at the park every Saturday for the next 5 weeks, and it's nmml.net. You can find any information about that. You can sign up for being a volunteer, or if you just want to come out and watch the kids play, I guarantee it'll change your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. Well, be sure everyone to go out and check it out. And again, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Overtime with Joe Parker. Mike, thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Overtime with Joe Parker. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the show, and follow all of Appen Media's sports coverage at northfulton.com.